think for me, food should always be celebrated. Eating well should come naturally, and being healthy really doesn't have to be hard. Sometimes the simplest ingredients can make the most delicious food. I know that I'm most happy in my kitchen, so I hope you enjoy my recipes. As a child, I used to think that drinking coffee, wearing glasses, and reading the paper, and maybe watching the news as well, were just all things that you did when you grew up. So naturally, I wanted to have coffee at every occasion to be grown up and pretended to read the newspaper. So any restaurant that we went to when we were younger, if there was coffee ice cream on the menu, I would have it. I actually hated it, but I think my early consumption of it developed a bit of a habit, and I now love it, although I do have it in moderation. So today I'm going to make a cashew hazelnut coffee mousse. It's nothing like your traditional mousse. It's a little bit thicker, but it's equally delicious, and it's really rich and tasty. So I've got some cashews here, just a cup of cashews that I've soaked overnight. So by soaking them, they absorb the water, and it just means they become really creamy and easy to mix up. So we're just going to put them into the Magimix. I've got the Magimix in this kind of smallest bowl setting because we're only going to be using basically a cup of cashews. The recipe kind of feeds 3 to 4 people. Because the mousse is quite rich, you don't need that much. So just going to put these cashews in here. And then to that, we're going to add a tablespoon of hazelnut butter. I quite like this mousse a little bit kind of thick, and I don't mind the chunks. I quite enjoy that. So I use a crunchy hazelnut butter. If you're really good, you will be using homemade hazelnut butter, but I've got to be honest, any homemade nut butter in my house really doesn't last long. So for the purpose of this, and because it's easier, we're just using shop bought. So about a tablespoon, just a little bit more in there. And then we're going to use about 4 tablespoons of really strong brewed coffee. So this is just instant coffee, and I've put quite a heaped teaspoon in, and then literally just covered it with enough water so that you can dissolve the coffee. So we're going to put about 4 tablespoons in there. If you're not a big fan of coffee, then just put 2. I quite like the taste of coffee, so I'm going to put 4 in there. And then another option ingredient is I'm just going to add 1/4 cup of raw cashews. This is going to mean that there's going to be a little bit more bite in there. And like I said, I quite like it a little bit more textured, so for me that works really well. And then we're going to put just a tablespoon of maple syrup. You can use honey, you can use coconut nectar. Most people have quite easy access to maple syrup, so it's quite a good one to use. So you just want to put a tablespoon in of that. If you have a really sweet tooth, you can put in 2 tablespoons. And then just a teaspoon of organic vanilla extract. Try to use the proper extract as opposed to the essence that is a bit cheaper. It just has a real synthetic taste, whereas this stuff is really nice. I either use this or a powdered vanilla, which is really, really lovely if you can get your hands on that. If you are using the powdered version, probably about 1/2 teaspoon is enough because it's really rich. So once that's all in there, we're just gonna blend it up a little bit. Once it's just partially kind of broken down, will look quite chunky. Just gonna push everything down with your spatula. And then we're gonna add 1/2 cup of almond milk. It's quite nice to make your own almond milk, but it is quite tiresome if you can't. I quite like the brand Eco Mill, otherwise Rude Health is quite a nice one as well. Just gonna add that in. And you can add more of this if you feel like you need to, if you prefer something thinner or for some reason it's not becoming thin enough. But all we're gonna do now is just whiz that back up again. So once that's nice and smooth, then you're done. Just want to take it out. And then just spoon it into these bowls. It's quite nice just to use little bowls or ramekins because it is quite rich, you don't need a huge amount. And you can either serve these straight away or you can let them chill in the fridge, which is quite a good idea because it just helps to thicken everything up. Now, with any dessert, I think it has a lot to do with the toppings. I'm definitely a topping fan. So we're going to top these with some of my coconut brownie super seeds, which are really delicious. And to be even more indulgent, I'm going to make just a little bit of a hazelnut coffee glaze. So I've just put a tablespoon of that coffee mix in there. And then I'm going to put a very heaped tablespoon of that hazelnut butter again. Just to thin it down. You might want to add more water. At this point I would add water as opposed to coffee because that coffee is quite strong. So just get some plain water. You don't have to do this. It's just quite fun to add something else. So once you've got something quite nice and thin, slightly different colour to what we've got in there, drizzle some of it onto these pieces. And then lastly, a bit of crunch.